Welcome back to BookTrib Live, a Merrill Moss Media production. Today we're thrilled to chat with Shaghayegh Farsijani, the author of The Burden of My Red Lips in Tehran, an eye-opening look into what life was really like for young women during the most heated years of Iran's modern history. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me again. Round two.
Round two, yeah. So before we begin our questions, why don't you tell us a bit more about The Burden of My Red Lips in Tehran?
Well, I don't know where I left off last time, but basically it's a novel regarding my life when I was taken from where I grew up, which was Brooklyn, New York, to Tehran. And I went there when I was in my teenage years. So there was a lot of layers of differences going on. One was being a teenager, you're going into your rebellious zone. And I had a big zone. I think 95% of all of my zone was rebelliousness. And then you had the layer of understanding the culture in Iran and the traditions. And then you had the layer of religion that it's basically because it's an Islamic country, they have that layer and you are mandated to understand that layer. And so it basically tells my life in a span of 1 year, although personally I was there for 7.5 years, of what really goes on for teenagers in Iran, specifically because I was a female and I explored that female world for female teenagers. And it was really eye-opening, interesting, and I could say I had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of culture shock, a lot of an identity crisis for sure.
Definitely. So we have a question here from Kate. She'd like to know, what have been some positive results of publishing the book, and have there been any negative results?
The positive results have been that a lot of people look at Iran from the media perspective and from all the other authors that have been focused on the book, whether politically or not politically. But no one has really shed light on how do these teenagers live? What are their limitations? So I'm very happy that it has shed some light, and hopefully it will shed more, crossing my fingers for this to become a movie, on teenager life and what teenagers go through in Tehran, because these guys are so limited, and it's at that fundamental age that you're forming and shaping into who you will become. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot that they go through, especially the ladies, because, for example, when I went to Iran, there was no dance major, and I wanted to become a dancer. No. Girls dancing is not an accepted arts major. Mm-hmm. So I was really bummed out because I was, I wanted to become a choreographer. I wanted to become Michael Jackson's choreographer, and I wanted to explore that lifestyle. And so that was closed, and there's a lot of prestigious majors, for example, medicine, or law, or becoming an engineer, that are open and are very favorably and preferably accepted. Mm-hmm. So it's the positive part, in answer to your question, is really shedding light on what is available and what isn't available, and educating people on how many teenagers live, and hopefully maybe creating even opportunities with people gaining awareness from it.
Definitely. And
the negative is that. Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I thought you asked a negative, the positive and the negative.
Yes. Was there any? Were there any negatives? Yes.
The negatives were negative temporarily because they really went into the positive. Like, the negative was really short-lived. As far as me as the author going through the negative, even though this book is not political, I still have my doubts of returning to my country because I was very open with everything that I stated in the book, and it is based on real life experiences. So that may be a negative for me as the author, but negative for the teenagers, I really hope that it's, that we really root for them. I really root for them. And I'm in support of education and awareness.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So speaking of teenagers, will you talk more about this teenage culture in Iran, what they do for fun, and maybe about like the party scene? I know it's very different.
It's very different. They do everything for fun. They have the best parties. If they want to catch the latest DJs, they'll just hop on a plane and go to Dubai, and party with any of the DJs that are being promoted there. Um, so they, because like I've said in the book, I've constantly stated that it's not after the revolution. People have figured out how to do stuff and how to live the way they want to live. Although on the surface, they do have to have that cover because this is the Islamic Republic of Iran and very much respected. But they do how they choose to live their life.
Right. And you said alcohol or drinking for teenagers is prohibited as well, correct?
For everyone, it's an
Oh, for
Islamic
everyone.
country, and right, it's an Islamic country, and as an Islamic country, they prohibit any forms of alcohol,
Mm,
except for maybe if you have a boo-boo and you want to put alcohol in your wound or stuff.
right.
But
Right.
for drinking, it's definitely prohibited, and that goes for everyone, not just teenagers.
Mhm.
But
So,
the teenagers were very aware of the black market, and they knew how to find their alcohol.
interesting. So you were raised in New York City, and you came to Iran, like went around when you were 15. How did you find that clash of cultures? Was it just so jarring, and how did you adjust to that?
It was a big shock. It was such a deep coma that I had fallen into. But then again, my parents were really supportive because, they were also unaware of what they were doing. And, this could be such a big shock for such a personality and such a different culture. And it was big. I went through lots of ups and downs, but my parents were very supportive, very loving. They put me in international school. My mother and father tried to understand that I was kind of a Madonna in my own way, and they tried to accommodate me. But it was difficult for them too, because not only were they Iranian and they lived by the culture in that society,
Mhm.
but they also were trying to make me understand that this is really not Brooklyn. It's not the United States anymore. It's a different way of living. It's a different style of thinking. And we went through a lot of clashes. And I'm not going to tell you how the book ends because although that ending is for another female that I knew in Iran that actually did that. Uh, and again, 90% of the book is based on my life experiences, the stuff that I couldn't experience and other girls did. I incorporated within the character to let everyone know this is stuff that happens.
Mhm.
And that girl, she eventually finds what she wants. She goes and sees, she gets what she wants, even though in Tehran it wasn't possible.
Right. Right. So we have a question here from Susan. She wants to know, well, she says, you mentioned that most people believe it's all dark and horrid in Iran. Why do you think that the news portrays this region with such horror?
I think it's there are different views and different ways of perception. And
Mhm.
although it's not accepted by the West, I think that the media shows it very differently.
Mhm.
If I were to return to two portions of my life where I grew up, it definitely was number one, Brooklyn, because at the time of my life. And number two would be in Tehran because I really grew up in the black and white of what I was experiencing. And I think, the media sometimes can be focused on one angle of what's going on, but really inside Iran, people are genuinely happy, although I think they would be happier if the limitations were, if they were given the right to decide and choose what they wanted to uh, believe in or how they wanted to live their life. So it's really a matter of perception, and the media perceives it in the media kind of way.
Um, so just revisiting a question I asked you yesterday, have you visited Tehran since you moved back, and would you ever move back there?
Let's start from the latter part of your question. I would never move back there because I mentioned this before because my formula of my personality, I would not survive there. I'm super ambitious. I'm super explorative, and I'm super opinionated and outspoken. And I will give my opinion, and that's not accepted there. You Either I would have suffered greatly, or maybe been, you know, arrested maybe for giving my opinion so openly. So, and for people like me, and many of them live in the U.S. that are super opinionated and, rebellious in different ways, our formula would definitely not survive. That being said, I did return for a cousin's wedding that no longer lives in Iran in February of 2010. But all of my friends and family, they don't live in Iran anymore. So we usually meet in another country. And I have no desire right now to go back, really, even though I miss it wholeheartedly. But it aggravates me. Stuff that goes on there aggravates me, but I miss it with all my heart.
So, is the experience of being a teenager in Iran different depending on your family's culture and sort of level of conservativeness? And do young people experience an extreme difference from the private and public cultures in Iran?
Very much. In different families, depending on the way that they think or how they operate, that is also passed on to the children or the teenagers. And so, for example, if a mother and father, if this is just one example, if maybe the father got an education in the U.S. and then the mother in the U.S. and both of them are very liberal in thinking, they would allow the child to maybe explore going to these mixed parties of boys and girls, or kind of battle the societal way of thinking that girls have to be with girls and guys have to be with guys, as far as parties and hanging out is what I'm talking about. And at the legal age, maybe have a glass of wine or experience drinking, again at the legal age, and really allowing the child to experience that upbringing, that growing up, with whatever parental way that they have going on. But as far as the society and what the society thinks, which the religion is very much included in that, it'll be very difficult for some families have that religion infused in them, and it makes it very difficult for teenagers that don't believe in that as much.
Right. So there are so many differences between the U.S. and Iran, and you've been speaking about them. But what are some similarities you found between Brooklyn and Tehran?
Oh my God! First of all, they're two of the most vibrant cities, and they have any kind of person that you think, such a diverse group of people in Tehran that you go to northern Tehran, there's the Italian embassy, and then you have Christmas parties, even though it's in Islam, but you have Armenians celebrating Christmas. And I remember I missed Christmas so much that I had two Armenian friends, and we when November came around, we started calling them and, hey, what's up? Let's hang out, because I wanted to go to the Christmas party that they threw. That's how much I miss Christmas. And we don't have Christmas in Tehran for Iranians. So, for me personally, because I was so westernized, I missed that. And in order to get into that group, we had Armenian friends, or maybe, sometimes we hung out with our Italian friends. But in answer to your question, it's very different. It's very different for teenagers.
So you spoke earlier about sort of an identity crisis that you experienced when you first moved to Tehran. Could you speak a little more about that?
What part of it? I didn't know what to believe. I didn't know what to think. As a teenager, you're already lost because you're trying to find yourself. But as with that cultural block in front of me, it came to the point where my stubbornness rose to the surface, and I say, you know what? This is what I think. If I want to pray, I'll pray. If I don't want to pray, I won't pray. I will decide on that. And although I respect whatever I'm supposed to respect, because I didn't even know what I was supposed to expect. Every day there was something different going on, religiously, and they have this in the book. We have our Shura, which is a religious ceremony in the streets in Tehran. And when I woke up that morning, and schools were closed, federal agencies were closed. I didn't know what was going on. All I saw were, people kind of, chainsawing themselves. And it was in commemoration, remembering one of the imams that had passed away. And I found it very interesting, but I really didn't believe, I didn't believe in all that was going on. And it was, my dad explained it to me that you can't really listen to loud music. But, I'm not going to spoil what I really found out about that event and what teenagers really do. But it was an eye-opener when I found out, teenagers that didn't believe in this stuff or just hanging out and checking out other people, what they really did. And it was interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
It was I'm sorry, I kind of sidetracked. So yes, I did have an identity crisis. I didn't even know what to believe anymore. And it came, when I hit all of these blocks, eventually I realized, forget it. I'm going to believe whatever I feel inclined to believe in. And it's not like I was, I read a lot of books. When they told me this is Islam, I read about it and I inquired about it. And then I decided, is this something that fits well with me? Is this something that I want to take practice in? Is this something that I want to believe in? I even prayed a couple of times, but then I found out I don't feel that connection. So let me go with my gut.
Mm-hmm. That's great. So how did it feel to return to New York after this whole experience, and what did you miss most about New York?
In the book or right here? Because in the book, there's different stuff that goes on. But as for me personally,
Yeah.
that's what you're referring to? Okay. Oh my
Or
God,
no,
when
from
I
you
came
personally.
back, me personally, okay. When I came back, I wanted chocolate chip cookies. I wanted a hot dog. I wanted pretzels. I mean, it sounds so simple and so little, but it was just, I wanted that New York accent. And when I even got on the plane to come back, and, in the terminal, there were people from New York going back to New York from their vacations. That New York accent, when it hit me, I felt home, I felt calm, I felt peace. And that's not to say that I didn't feel that in Tehran. That just means to say that I connected with something that was deeply rooted in me and that didn't bother me. It gave me the freedom to choose.
Mm.
And that being said, my greatest friends are from Tehran. I still love Tehran. I love the food, but I long to go back home, and not just any home. I wanted to go back to Brooklyn. And I remember when I went back, I went to the special Italian pastry shop. I got my pastries, my pizza. And I just wanted to have that feeling of being back home.
Right, definitely. And did you miss anything about Iran once you were back in the city?
I missed everything but the mandatory beliefs that they put on me. I missed my friends. I missed the streets. I missed the parks we used to hang out with and play badminton. I missed little get-togethers with family members. I missed the Persian New Year and how it was celebrated. There was such a sense of love and connectedness, and the people are so beautiful, and the teenagers are so fun, so much fun. I missed everything about it except for the limitations. And I think that's what I don't want imposed on me, and that's why I don't go back.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So we have a question here from Franklin. He says, this book really lifts your spirit. Was that your intention? What did you want people to take out of reading The Burden of My Red Lips in Tehran?
Two things. One is an eye-opener to what really goes on in the underground New York society of Tehran, how girls and guys meet. I mean, we don't have a bar hopping scene. We don't have somebody coming up to you and say, how you doing? There's nothing like that. So the underground New York City of Tehran really exposes that part. And number two, to create awareness on multiple levels. One is parents that make such a move really be aware of what that child will go through, because a lot of girls go in different directions, maybe go into drugs, maybe go into prostitution, maybe, in order to relieve themselves of such the loss and the pain that they have or the confusion. And also for the teenagers, to keep on moving forward, to keep on being strong, believing, but being clever about it, whether you're in Iran or, if you come out to pursue what you want to pursue. Because like I said, the field of art is closed, and there's so many girls in Iran that have their own fashion lines right now, again, and it's in the underground New York City. Mm. So really kudos to them for pursuing their passion with all the limitations and bringing awareness to what they're doing and letting them know that we support them. And also for parents that make such a drastic move to really make them aware, because my parents weren't, and when they read the book, they were so sad that they put me through all this. But I have compassion because they weren't aware. But I really did go through ups and downs, and it was, I think if it wasn't for my spirituality and for me, of course at that time I didn't have it, but being strong and, having that unconditional love towards them, I went through it all.
Right, definitely. So looking back, what are your most predominant positive or negative memories of your years living in Iran?
I went to the University of Tehran. Mm-hmm. So some of my best years were in the university. University of Tehran is one of the hardest to get into. So I basically locked myself up for 6 months and I didn't do anything, just study the books, because the SATs there are super competitive. And I think University of Tehran is on par with Harvard. And I was able to get into that university, but once I got into it, I basically never went to class. So I had made great friends, and we were just living our, 19, 20-year-old lives. And that's when I found out how they meet and how girls and guys meet and how they date and how they drink and how they party and the fashion, the underground catwalks and fashion shows. I got exposed to, I think I found all of that out, and I was getting to know myself better via all the differences. I knew what it was like out there, and I'm seeing the little eye-opening piece of how these people go through it all and make it happen. So that was awesome. I made some of my best friends there. They currently live here, all of them very entrepreneurial or very successful. And I really enjoy our friendship. And I think via this book, I found a closure with my parents that I didn't have before. And I've gotten closer with them as well, because it was a very, very tough period. But my higher intention is really to, those were my memories in answer to your question. Yeah. But, an extended answer is really full circle how I can contribute this book's message to educate and provide awareness. And that's why, I don't know what woodpecker, do you hear that sound? I think
I heard a little.
Woodpecker, But on a higher level, really, to give that education to people that either don't have it or are not aware of getting it fully. So all the proceeds for this book are going to a charity to build a school in Nepal that breaks ground December of 2015 of this year. So it was very important for me to provide that education, because a lot of girls may not have it, a lot of guys may not have it in third world countries, and it's really close to my heart that we move this project forward.
So we have a bunch of viewer questions that I'd like to start getting to. Sandra would like to know if you had any other working titles for The Burden of My Red Lips in Tehran.
Oh, we did. The first title was called My Red Lips, My Tehran. And the reason why I wanted red lips, here we go with the woodpecker again. The reason why we have red lips is because lips is so sensuous. I think the kiss with the lips is the most sensuous part, the most sensuous kind of touch between two human bodies, the lips. And then red because I really wanted to say, this is femininity. I wanted to give it that femininity kick. And so it was called My Red Lips and My Tehran because it is about my journey back to Tehran, or mine and other experiences that I've incorporated within the book. So I was one day, I met someone and the title wasn't really sinking in with me. And I told the gentleman next to me, which was an ex-CIA agent of all things, about my book. And we were stuck in an elevator. So we started talking. We were stuck for a good 5 to 10 minutes. And then he said, honey, I think you should name your book The Burden of My Red Lips in Tehran. That's case closed. The minute he said that, it was like he was my angel. The elevator started moving. I know, and I was like, the doors opened, and I came out of the elevator with a new title. I came in with the old and out with the new, and there we go.
Wow, that's a great story. That is
just going with the flow.
Definitely. Elizabeth wants to know, what books are you currently reading?
I'm currently reading, I'm reading Gratitude Diaries. And I'm also reading another book. You probably read this one, but it's the second time I'm reading it. It's The Confederacy of Dunces. So Gratitude Diaries, I guess before I go to bed and when I'm on a public transportation where I have, 5 to 10 minutes to read, I get some in, but sometimes when I have a good 1 or 2 hours during the day, or I try to fit in 45 minutes, a good novel, Confederacy of Dunces is my favorite, and I read it. This is the second time I'm reading it.
Definitely. Great.
Poetry.
So Brenda asks, you chose to recount this period of your life in a Semi Memoir. Why so?
Well, because a lot of the stories that I have in this book, they're all based on true life experiences. But I was very fortunate. There were many teenagers that weren't as fortunate as me. So I incorporate their experiences, which is maybe 10 to 15% of the book, into this character. So it gives a broader perspective of what goes on.
So Linda asks, you describe yourself as a former reporter and anchor turned author and poet. What sparked that shift?
I was a reporter in Tehran. I worked for the Federal News Agency, although in the book I have it as a 1-year intern. I have it as a, I think 6 to 7 month internship because the book spans 1 year of her life. What sparked the change from being a reporter anchor to author reporter?
Yes.
To author poet?
Poet, yes.
I've always liked to write, and even when I came back to the States, I pursued journalism. But what really angered me is that I couldn't really say what I wanted to say. In Tehran, it was one way, and when I came here, it was another way. So it was abiding by the media way, and it really angered me and frustrated me. So I started writing on my own, and my first book was poetry, and I always get my different emotions through the vehicle of words out with poetry. And then I decided, why don't I write a book regarding my teenager life, because it could be, everybody that heard it was so fascinated, and then it came to my mind that this could really provide awareness. So I started writing it 5 years ago. And now, after 5 years, April of 2015, it came out. And that was the spark, because I couldn't express what I wanted to express. I was always closed. People always told me what to write and how to write it.
So Chelsea asks, your cover is so minimalistic but powerful at the same time. Did you have any input into the overall design? Here's a visual for viewers.
You got cut off. Do you have any input on the overall cover of the book? Is that your question?
Oh, yeah. She said that the cover is so minimalistic but powerful at the same time. Did you have any input in the overall design?
I did. What I wanted was something that had red, because it was red lips, And I also wanted something that had turquoise because in northern Iran we have a lot of firuze, which is the color of the turquoise stones in Tehran, in Iran, excuse me. So that was kind of, instead of the Iranian flag or some kind of symbol, I wanted it to be symbolic. So the turquoise comes from the northern Iran because of the turquoise stones, and the red because of the name of the book. And then I also wanted to make it feminine, contemporary. So we debated about how we wanted to make this book. So initially started off with the Statue of Liberty and the Azadi Tower, which are two symbols of freedom, one in New York and one in Tehran. And then I said, no, it's not grabbing. It takes me into the world of politics. That's not where I want my mind to go. I want my mind to go into culture more. And then when we came to this idea, somebody started giving new dress ideas. Sometimes the dress would be like a prom dress, and sometimes it would be like, the Miss USA dress or Miss America. And I said, no, the dress has to be, very teenager-like. And then we had a dress with a big flower here. So we went through different variations until we came to something very simple, yet contemporary, yet feminine, yet teenager-like, yet very Iranish. And if anybody is very familiar with Tehran on a very minimal level, they know that they're very famous for their stones, their firuze stones. And that's the color, that blue turquoise is the color of their stones.
Wow. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today, but thank you so much, Shaghayegh. This was great. And thank you
for
everyone.
having me, and you're saying my name. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah. And thank you everyone for tuning in to BookTrib Live today. Remember to head over to booktrib.com and enter to win a copy of The Burden of My Red Lips in Tehran. All right. Thank you so much, Shaghayegh.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye.